So we will review first the concepts. We will try to make sure that everybody's understanding the basics of this end-to-end process. And later we will perform a demonstration. We are recording the session, right, Daniel? So for the sake of the recording and the people from Bangkok and other entities that will watch it tomorrow, I would rather have the questions between the presentations and the demo, so we can go through the concepts in one shot. So if you have any questions, just write it down, and like in 10 or 15 minutes, you will be able to ask. Or if you prefer to ask it right away, you write them on the chat. So after the presentation, Daniel and I we will try to see it together. I think I'm having some feedback. So okay. All right. So the first portion of this training. Okay, sorry, I was muted. So what I was saying is that the first part of this training is called Good Receipt and Equipment Enrichment. And we're going to explain now what we mean by that and how this is involved in the procurement management process. I believe Daniel already introduced yesterday some concepts about the equipment master record, which is a record that we have in the system to track equipment in general, regardless if they are fixed assets or not. So we use the equipment master record to reflect any changes that are happening to it. So, and this equipment master record is affected by a number of, let's say, business processes. One of them is the good receipt, but also the transfer of equipment, equipment assignment, maintenance, and physical verification. So in a nutshell, these 5 processes, business processes that you see in the screen, are affecting this equipment master record that represents an equipment in the system. So first of all, we want to see the good receipt process, this one, because it's the very first one and the one that is triggering the creation of this equipment master record that later is going to be managed. So in this sense, the good receipt and the equipment enrichment update are these 2 processes that are part of the scope of this session, together with the assignment that we will see after a short break. So when do we perform this good receipt transaction in the system? And I'm assuming that some of you already heard about this good receipt process. Is the moment that we are receiving goods, let's say, in our entity. But maybe if I explain it with like a diagram in a more visual way, will be better. So everything starts from the requisitioner. So when we need something in our entity, we raise through procurement process or requisitioning process, a shopping cart is created. That is having a reference to the material master catalog, which actually is a list of, let's say, materials or products that is used to select the item that we want to acquire. For example, let's say that this requisitioner wants to acquire a new laptop, for example. So they create a shopping cart. From the shopping cart, through procurement, we have a PO created. A PO stands for purchase order. And this document is a procurement document that contains the agreement with the vendor. And the vendor, will send the goods to our entity, and eventually we will receive them, right? There is a process called R&I, reception and inspection. So when we will receive these goods, if we are acquiring something classified as equipment, for example, a laptop, the system automatically will create a serial number. This serial number is a new concept for you, maybe. It's a number to identify the equipment master record in the system. So in other words, we are receiving physically a laptop, and in the system, an equipment master record is created with that can be identified by a number. So if we go to this number, we are actually going to the equivalent of the laptop, but in the system. So this serial number is very important, and it creates what we call the equipment master record. This equipment master record, will be available in the system for us to display it, to maintain it, to assign it, etc. So the full session today, and I'm sure in the following days as well, everything is going to, let's say, be explained related to the equipment master record. So this is like the key element in all these presentations. Now, as well, apart from the equipment master record that is created, the system automatically sends a notification, a message, an email actually to the requisitioner informing about the reception of the goods and the equipment master record that has been created. Now it's important to notice that when this equipment master record is created in the system, it already contains some information that has been created automatically. You can see the list in the slide right now. For example, cost center or WBSC, which is another element that I don't want to touch right now, but cost center identifies the owner of the equipment. It is related to the cost center that was selected in the shopping cart. The currency, material group, plant, the plant identifies the entity that is acquiring the element, material, and a series, let's say a list of fields that will be automatically populated in the equipment master record. But apart from that, there is some other information that needs to be added that will be added manually. All right. But let's say in general, this would be a good example of how the process works. The shopping cart, there is a purchase order, there is a good receipt that creates automatically an equipment master record identified by a serial number, and the equipment master record contains some information already. Is this clear? Daniel, any question about it? Okay. So, and then immediately after the equipment good receipt, there is a second process that is called, we call enrichment of the equipment master record that is performed by this user. It's called master data maintainer. It's actually a local equipment master data maintainer that will go to this equipment master record, to this record, and will add some additional information. For example, this is very important to, let's say, indicate the authorization group. That is another way to tell the system who is responsible of maintaining or managing this element, this item. Function allocation, very, very important, because it will tell the system where is the equipment master record located. So it is essential to know where it is and for later physical verification. And then the user status can be, let's say, maintained. And additionally, there is another list. There is some other fields that can be maintained in the system and should be maintained. That will depend also on the type of equipment. But in general, we can see, for example, manufacturer, model number, part number, weight, site, warranty document, etc. So after the equipment is received, the equipment master record in the system is created, and this user, master data maintainer, you will see later it is SD11, will, let's say, update the equipment master record. Is this clear, Daniel? Okay. So how do we, let's say, we will go now to the system in a few minutes, and we will show to you this, like, let's say, in the system. But before going there, let me tell you a bit about the enrichment, possible ways of enriching this equipment master record. There are two ways of doing it. Updating one record at a time, and we will show that in the system, and updating a list of them using what is what we name as the equipment must change utility, that will be also explained during the week because it's actually used for physical verification as well. Now, in this demonstration, we are going to receive one element, one item, and we will update the record manually, so you know at least the basic stuff, which is how to do it one by one. So when will you use this equipment must change procedure? For example, in situations when you do good receive for multiple items and maybe they are all the same, no? So instead of going one by one, performing same transaction, you could use this tool. Or for example, if there is a downsizing of the mission, or you need to update a long list of equipment for some reason, it can be used as well. Even though in this scenario wouldn't be like enrichment, but you could massively change equipment. And then in the case of a multiple, let's say write-off cases. But let's go back again to the roles involved in this process of goods receipt and enrichment. We have, as we said before, the requisitioner. That is a staff member that is involved in creation of the shopping cart. We have the receiving user, is the user that is performing the good receipt in the system. So it's posting in the system a transaction that will be very important as well because it has also financial implications. And it's the moment that the system creates the equipment master record. And we have a third user called local master data maintainer. This one is the user that could update the equipment master record. So 3 roles involved. We're going to focus in this session on the receiving part and the updating of the equipment master record. But this is also for your reference. Typically, the requisitioner can also act as a master data maintainer. This is the role SD11. So if you are new to Umoja, to the system, you should know what role you have in the system to identify yourself with this process. Receiving user could be RD07, okay, and it would depend as well on how your entity is implementing. Now, this training is more focused on property management, so we will pass through the receiving process without providing, like I said, too many details, but it's triggering the management of the equipment master record. So we will show it if it's okay with you. And eventually this SD11, or it could be also SD10. You will see it in the job base that we will share with you, with the documents that we will share with you. But we are going to refer to SD11 because functionality is the same when we refer to equipment updates. SD11, the local master data maintainer, receives offline communication on enrichment activity. So it's informed when the equipment master record is already created. And and basically is responsible for maintaining and modifying equipment record within the assigned authorization group. And we will see that later this as well. So why to enrich the equipment after good receipt? So the equipment management, if we do it, will be improved very much because the physical for the physical verification or inventory counting will be very important. And if we don't enrich the equipment, there might be a delay, right, as a result of misidentification of the equipment, right? Because this will add additional information that will be very helpful to identify, and not only to identify, to even find the equipment. For example, one of the critical elements that we will enrich will be the functional location, or in other words, where is the element, the item physically located. So this is very important. And also for warehouse purposes, Even though as far as I understand, some of the entities attending this training don't have, let's say, a warehouse, or they are not implementing inventory management module. But still, this is for your information. But at least for the first point, it is critical, it is essential, and it is something that you need to keep in mind. Enriching equipment after good receipt. What type of information we will be adding? For example, manufacturer part number, model, serial number, etc. And for equipment, for maintenance as well, but this is a bit out of the scope of the session. So let me continue giving you an example, and we will go in, I think, in 2 minutes to the system to put all this in a better, let's say, frame. So what type of information are going to be enriched? This depends on the type of equipment that we are acquiring. If, for example, you acquire vehicles, or for example, the equipment master record is referring to a vehicle, there are some tabs, some data, some fields that will need to be enriched. And they are related to the vehicle technology, for example, and some other vehicle ID. If it's a generator, there would be other fields specific to generators. And for the rest, there will be some like 9 tabs with data that you could enrich. And we will go now to the system to see, as I said before, the good receipt process. So please allow me to go to the next to the system actually and show this one. 1 second. So I want to make sure. I'm not sure. Can you still see my screen, Daniel?
No. Now that you're logging into the training environment, we don't see the screen, but I can just take this moment to ask you, David, a question. Charles Lestrade is asking whether this automatic enrichment after goods received applies to fixed assets and non-fixed asset type of equipment.
Yeah, this is actually a very, very good question. This process applies to all type of equipment. Now, for example, a laptop, it's an equipment, but a vehicle, it's an equipment. It's considered as an equipment in the system and a fixed asset. So the enrichment process applies to fixed assets and regular equipment, but consider that in the system, both fixed assets and equipment master equipment items will have what we call equipment master record. So there will always be an equipment master record identifying a laptop or a vehicle. Okay. So if it's a vehicle, if it's a generator, if it's a printer, all these elements have an equipment master record, and therefore they have to go through this process. I'm going to share my screen again now that I'm going to access to the system. So 1 second. Screen 1 should be this one. Okay, so if you can please confirm if you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see the screen. And before or while you're logging in, David, and you can as well, it's actually linking this asset master record identifier, an equipment master record identifier, and what's the relationship with the serial number? Is it the same thing or not?
Okay. Again, very, very good question. And actually, once that we show it in the system, I think it's going to be easier to explain. But we have 3 numbers. No, what we saw first was called serial number. It is a number that is created at the moment of the good receipt. But then when the system creates the equipment master record, it's created with the same number. So what you see in the good receipt as a serial number is actually the equipment master record number. So it's the same. It has a different name because we are in 2 different modules, if you want, in SAP. two different transactions. So it's created as serial number to identify the equipment master record. So the equipment master record is identified by a number that is the serial number. Now, if this equipment it's also considered as a fixed asset because it goes beyond certain capitalization value, is to be used for more than 1 year, etc., and is considered as per financial principles a fixed asset. Apart from the equipment master record, it will have another number that is called asset number, right? So now, if you allow me to go to the system, I think it will make more sense. But thank you. It was a very good question. Okay, so Daniel, may I go ahead and then after the demonstration? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and just before we go there, just 30 seconds to for you to take a look at the chat, because we are responding to some questions as well as the comments from your colleagues like Liena Carbonell Miralles. She's sharing a piece of information that might be useful for you in case that you are interested in a little bit more in the roles of who can enrich an equipment master record as well. So please take a look at the chat as well. Over to you, David.
Thank you. And not sure if Kirill wants to add something before I go to the demonstration. If Kirill is, I know it's super late there. I don't know if it's connected. I think it's connected. But if you are there, Kirill, at any moment, please feel free to intervene. All right. Okay. So what you can see now in the screen, and I hope it's not new to all of you, is the SAP screen of the ECC, let's say, component. So this is a system where we're going to, let's say, perform transactions to do the good receipt and to perform the equipment enrichment. So the first T code we are going to use, and you will see that I entered it on this part of the screen, is called MIGO, M-I-G-O. This T code is used to receive items, but actually before this one, I want to show you another one, just to put this into the, let's say, the context. So if you see now on the screen, we mentioned that everything before the good receipt, we have a shopping cart and a purchase order. So let's imagine that we have a purchase order in the system and we have a vendor that will be delivering some goods. So I'm going to display a purchase order to see if we will receive this let's say, elements. So what you see now, I'm going to enter purchase order number. This is 9998051. Yeah. So what you see here is a purchase order where we are acquiring 300 laptops. So this purchase order is with this vendor, A to Z Services, and we are going to, or we are acquiring 300 laptops. Now we're going to imagine that we receive, let's say, one laptop. We're going to make a very simple scenario. So and we receive the laptop physically in our entity. So what would be the process in the system? So as I said, we go with the transaction MIGO. And here on the screen, we have a first dropdown where we will indicate the type of transaction that we will perform in the system. In our case, we want to perform a goods receipt. So I'm going to select this option here, good receipt. On the next, let's say, drop-down list, we have purchase order. So we want to indicate here what is the purchase order from which we are going to receive new elements. So let me enter here the number of the purchase order, 229999. Let's say this is the purchase order. And here you have two different tabs, but the first tab is the important one, where we will indicate, let's say, how many items how many laptops we are going to receive, and we will populate some information below. So you see here, in general, posting date is when the items are being received. Materials or text is the type of material, so the description of the material that is included in this purchase order. Quantity is 298 because two elements were already received. And below, we have a series of tabs where we're going to explain, or we are going to detail in the system the, let's say, information about this good receipt. So we have a first tab called material. Material specifies the material we are receiving. Okay, when it says material, it's a product, it's a laptop, and we don't need to enter anything here because it's derived from the purchase order. In quantity, we will indicate how many laptops in this case we are receiving. So let's imagine that we are receiving, I don't know, maybe one laptop, even though it's a very small amount of laptops for such a big PO, but it's only to give you an example. So I say it's only one. In the Where tab, we indicate that this is received in the plant MONUSCO. So this example in this purchase order is for the mission in Congo called MONUSCO. But if you are doing this for your entity, of course, in the plant, you will have a different code here. The type of good receipt is simply good receipt for account assignment. So we are assuming that we are not receiving for inventory, because I think most of the scenarios for your entities will be like that. No? But if it's going to inventory, the process will receive will only change on the movement type and then some other fields. But let's say that this is a scenario. In this scenario, we don't have, let's say, a particular inventory or warehouse in the entity. So we said we are receiving one laptop in this entity. And in this other tab, you can see details about the purchase order, the vendor. Account assignment is related to who is paying for that, and serial numbers. So stop here. This tab is very important because it's the place where the system is going to create a new number to identify this equipment master record. So when the good receipt is processed, this option here that says create serial number automatically must be selected. This is something to pay attention. If you are performing good receipt, of course, you need to keep it in mind. But even if you are not performing good receipt, you need to make sure that the RNI user is marking this slide. Any question, Daniel?
Yes. Well, we have overall we have a lot of comments, and a lot of the students are underlining the fact that whether what is triggering actually the number of the equipment, or whether it's an equipment or not, and I'm referring to the PID. So the wrong selection of the PID will have negative impacts on the road. So the PID will trigger whether we are talking about of a vaccine, whether we are talking about a fixed asset or another piece of equipment. So PID is of paramount importance in this regard at the requisitioning part. And then we had some questions and comments of movement types, but I explained in the chat that in these 5 days training, we are not going to cover that part. We can mention the movement types, but any other question related to the movement types and the goods received, we can take it offline. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Daniel. So let's say, to summarize what I did, we went to Migo, to the transaction for good receipt. We indicated the purchase order. Then we set one laptop, and we selected the option create serial numbers automatically. And now we are marking item. We are checking also the option item OK to say that we are receiving one laptop and the laptop is fine. OK. Now we will click on check. The system is basically telling us that out of the 298 laptops that we are expecting to receive, we are only receiving one. So this is not very important. And we click on post. So now the system is posting this good receipt, and it should create automatically a serial number. It should also create automatically equipment master record, and it should send a notification to the requisitioner, as we explained in the presentation. As you can see on at the bottom of the page, there is a number, material document it's called. That is the number of our good receipt. So I'm going to take note of this number because I want to show to you the serial number that is created automatically, 260641. The system automatically creates as well the, let's say, the good receipt, the printout, but for this training I'm not going to show it. So let's say that automatically the system should have sent a notification as well to the requisitioner with a message like this one. Let me show to you what is the type of notification that is explaining the job aid as well. So the requisitioner should have received something like, dear user, please note the following equipment records have been created in Dumoy as a result of the goods received against your original purchase requisition. Okay, so this will include the number, the equipment master record numbers. But in our scenario, since I'm doing all the roles, I'm going to display the good receipt to take note of the equipment master record. So this is the same good receipt we created. Okay, don't get confused by the name material document. Okay, because this is simply the technical document that is created in SAP, but you can identify it with this number, the one that I wrote down. And if we go now to serial numbers, we see there a new serial number created. This serial number, as I said before, identifies as well the equipment master record. So 16192301. And this number should be used to find the equipment master record. So this is the good receipt process. And I'm going to start now the equipment enrichment process. Any question about the good receipt, Daniel?
Yes, now that we can see in the screen the serial number that was created, we had a couple of questions on is this number randomly created, or does it have any sequence or logic behind? Over to you.
Yeah, this is simply, I mean, it's not random, it's a sequence. So if it creates several, it will be increasing one. But as far as I know, there is no relation between the number and the type of element, whatever. It's simply a serial number. Okay, but it will help you understand if the higher the number is created more recently. So I'm going now to the second portion of this presentation. So if you remember, we said that automatically after the good receipt, equipment master record is created. And it should have some fields created automatically. Let's go and check. Now we will leave this transaction and we will use another T code. So you can take note of that. Anyway, we will share some job aids at the end of the session. The T code is IE02 or 03 actually, if we want to display only, but 02 to maintain. So we see in the screen now an input field for the equipment, and we enter here the serial number that the system created automatically, 16192301. And I'm going to press enter, and the system is displaying a new screen that is actually the equipment master record. You see first it has the equipment, let's say ID, that is the same as the serial number. The description particular for this item is computer, it's a laptop. It has another information called status, and this one is very important. You have two fields here. And we will display later the meaning. The first status is the system status. The second one is called user status. And there are multiple tabs with information. Okay, so if we go through these tabs, we will see some data that is already pre-populated. If we open this at the same time this slide, we will see. Sorry, just allow me to do something. So you can see two screens in one. So sorry, please bear with me. Bear with me one moment. Here it is. So for example, we should have cost center, right? So if we go to this screen here and we go to organization tab, we see already account assignment that is generated. We have the business area and we have the cost center already there. We have as well acquisition value. So if we go to general tab, we have acquisition value, $200 because this laptop was very cheap. So it's $200 only. And acquisition date when it was acquired. This is today because I just processed the good receipt. And some other fields that are relevant. For example, we have business area there. Okay, as well, it's MONUSCO. I mean, this is the mission or the entity. We have the plant, and so on and so on. So this is the equipment master record that is created automatically. Now, what do we need to update? So we need to update, and it's also in this presentation. Immediately upon reception of the goods, there are some elements that need to be enriched, and they are very important. One of them is authorization group, and then functional location and user status if we need to change. This is even before assignment. So directly after reception, we should do this. So we have on the first tab the field called authorization group, and this one is used for access control purposes. So let's say that local equipment what is the name of user? Master data maintainer will have access only to set the list of equipment in your entity under your authorization group. For example, in the case of MONUSCO, if this is a laptop, we will be selecting the authorization group. For example, T00 ICT. Now in your entities, I don't know if you have, let's say 5 authorization groups or only one if your entity is very small, but it's important that you know if you are master data maintainer, if you are one of these users, if you are SD11 or even SD10, you need to know to what authorization group you are mapped. And then the equipment master records that you are responsible for, you need to select your authorization group. From the moment this authorization group is selected, other, let's say SD11 users will not have access to it. For example, if we are acquiring a laptop, immediately after it is received, it will be empty. So any SD11 user in your entity can have access to it to maintain it. But if you go there, you modify and you say this is ICT, then engineers from a different authorization group will not be able to maintain it. So if you select it wrongly, you might have an issue of not being able to access the equipment later. This is very important too. Also, it helps to define together with the cost center. It helps to define, let's say, ownership and stewardship. So authorization group, very important. We said cost center, very important as well, because it's, let's say, identifying the owner of the equipment. And another element that is very important is functional location. We will also review it later, but let's say that immediately after receiving it, since we don't have let's say, inventory in our entity, we have to specify where the equipment is going to be physically until it is assigned. So this is done on this tab. It's in the tab structure, and it's called functional location. This functional location, let me repeat again, is the physical actually location, is the place where the equipment is located. So in order to identify where is the let's say equipment, we would click on this icon here to change the functional location, and we will select a functional location from our entity. I'm going to click on the match code to select from a list. All right, and then for example, I'm going to select my entity, or I'm going to filter by a particular location in Goma because I know it's in Goma. So what you see here is a list of functional location. If you not already know where it's going to be located, you can simply select it from there. All right. So for example, let's say that this laptop is located in Goma, in this city, in the HQ office. So if you are acquiring some equipment in your entity, you have to identify, you have to specify where it's going to be located. Maybe your entity is not so big, so you don't have so many functional locations, but you need to select it. Okay, we will go later to how these functional locations are created in the system, but I'm going to select this one. So I'm telling the system this equipment that we just received is in this place. All right. So I already enriched this equipment. I added the authorization group. I have added functional location, and then I can see if I need to change the something on the status. So this, if you click on this I button, you will get another screen with the system status and the user status. Let me go back. So because maybe I did it very quickly. This is the equipment master record, and here you have in the status you have inst, which means this item is now would be now already installed because it's basically assigned to a functional location, and this other status which is equipment idle. So if you want to see or change the equipment status, you have to click on this button, and it will tell you, it will show you on the left side the system status inst, the same you were seeing before. It's installed because we selected, and this system status changed automatically, is changed by the system. And on the right side we have the other status, EQID, equipment idle. Now let's say this equipment is not assigned yet, so we will maintain it as equipment idle. After we assign this laptop to a person, we will change its status to equipment assigned. So I think we are good to leave it with this status. There is some other information that should be populated depending. You will know it better than me depending on the equipment. For example, here you have manufacturer. So you could, for example, specify here who is producing this element, the model number of the equipment. No, for example, I don't know. Let me say 5.2, whatever. And those are these are other fields that could be enriched in the equipment master record. Okay, so we can go tab by tab and see. I'm going to save this equipment master record, and this data will be saved. To save the equipment master record after my changes, you need to go to this icon here, the save button, click on it, and it's saved. Okay, still the number remains. So do we need to maintain only these tabs? Well, it will depend on the type of equipment, as I said before in the presentation. So one of the last slides was telling you, if you are, let's say, enriching a vehicle, you will have more tabs. So this one, it was a laptop, so had only 9 tabs. If we are trying to enrich another type of equipment, like for example, a fixed asset that is a vehicle. I'm going to open here another fixed asset now. For example, I think I have one number here. I took note of one number. Yeah, Daniel, you have a
You're
question.
looking for that number. I do see, and I'm happy to see, such a dynamic group of students with so many questions and comments in the chat. I'm taking note of the questions and comments, so there are so many and so important. So that's why, and I don't want to interrupt David, but just a couple of comments. First of all, I shared a link because there were a lot of questions on the user access and the roles and whether there are some sort of, let's say, impact if I am SD11, which roles should not be granted for me if I am SD11. So in order to cope with all the questions related to roles, I shared the link of the user access provisioning role guide. So where in that PDF, you can download the PDF from the chat and you can see for each other roles that you can request in Umoja, which ones are the ones that you cannot request if you have, and which are the requisites, prerequisites that you have to be compliant with in order to request those roles as well. So with that, I think piece of document, all the roles type of questions, we can cope with them. Then we have questions related to the acquisition costs if we are talking about an asset or a piece of equipment, why there is a difference between the costing. I mean, I know, David, you know the answer, but I leave it to you in case that you want to go to the asset part or not. And of course, there are plenty of comments related to the PID. The round selection of the PID has a lot of affections down the road in terms of physical verification, the goods received, whether it's an equipment or not. So several colleagues are actually addressing questions directly to Kirill on whether there will be a good idea to have a separate course to have a list of guidelines in order to do a proper requisitioning. So all these goods received and equipment creation will be properly done. So, but there are more questions and I'm trying to respond and I'm keeping track of all of them. But in the meantime, I leave the floor to David. Over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Actually, yes, they are very valid questions. But being this one, let's say an induction training, I think it's better to cover the basics. So we have everybody with the same knowledge in terms of concepts and, let's say, a basis for to perform transactions. Sorry, because we have a truck passing by here. Okay, so yeah, the questions, I think we can take them offline, the ones regarding to the acquisition value and so on. So just to close this part of the equipment enrichment, I was mentioning that some other equipment will have different fields to be enriched. If you see here the computer, the laptop that we had before have this, let's say 9 tabs. If we click here, we see all the tabs. But if I open another type of equipment that is a truck, that I have it here, you will see there are some other tabs that were not there before. For example, vehicle ID, insurance, and vehicle technology. So if you are, let's say, receiving another vehicle or a generator, you might enrich other tabs, not only the ones that are, let's say, standard for all the items. All right. So this was the first part of the session today, and I believe we covered the process. We reviewed the end-to-end and what happened at the moment of the good receive, that the equipment master record is created. We showed that on the system as well, and how you can maintain the equipment master record. Basic fields that needs to be maintained, and they are very important, like functional location authorization group, and some other fields that you can maintain there. The users involved in this process, as we mentioned, you have the SD11 and SD10, as you can see in the reference, but SD11 to maintain, and the receiving user. So if you have no other questions about good receipt and equipment enrichment, we could break. But if you have any other question on this, we will try to reply, and we will do the break for the equipment assignment. Any other question about this topic, Daniel?
Well, yeah, there are plenty of questions, but I see that a lot of them are a bit of out of the scope of this training. As you mentioned before, this is an induction training, but just for your reference, we have questions related to what's the difference between an asset and a piece of equipment, whether the asterisks related to the technical identification number should be removed or not, in which conditions you should manually intervene and enrich a piece of equipment, and in which other conditions you should not. And whether if you know that a piece of equipment belongs to you, to your authorization group, but you see that that piece of equipment belongs to another plant, what will be our solution? So I'm trying to respond all those questions in the chat, but please bear in mind that some of these questions are concepts that we are not going to cover during these 5 days, but nevertheless we are tracking them and we will try to give an answer to you. But please, as I said, there are some concepts that are a bit outside of the scope of this training, and if you think that you need more support, just drop an email so we can address that offline rather than in this session. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Daniel. And actually, one of the questions was a very good one. So I think this one we can explain. The question about what is the difference between the equipment and the fixed asset. At least I'm going to explain in terms of how to check this in the system, so you know if you have a case of an equipment master record that is a standalone, let's say, or if it's also a fixed asset. So when we go with this safety code IE02 or IE03 to display the equipment master record, if our equipment is also a fixed asset, you can see it here on the tab organization. In the same tab where you can see the cost center, there is an input called asset. So if this, instead of being a laptop, would be a vehicle, that is a fixed asset, in this field here, you would have the asset number. That would allow the system to track its, let's say, net book value for financial purposes. So this one is something important, that if you open a equipment master record and you see it's an asset, I mean, if you see an asset number here, it's because it's an asset. Now the question about when not to enrich the equipment master record, I'm not sure there is a reason not to enrich the equipment master record, right? It's a mandatory process. What you might think is what fields, what of the optional fields you are not populating, and maybe on that, which is, since it's more a business question, maybe someone from New York could clarify as well. But according to the process, for sure, after good receipt, you have to go and indicate the authorization group, and you have to indicate the functional location. This is like mandatory. If you don't do that and you need to perform physical verification, you will not know where to find the item, for example, no? And you will not know if there are discrepancies. And regarding the question about authorization group, if you have an equipment master record that you know it belongs to you, but is under a different, let's say, plant, for example, we have to say what happened with this equipment. If it was created under one entity and then it was transferred to another entity and it appears under the wrong plant, right? The plant is identifying the entity, maybe because the transfer process didn't happen. So, but this is more case by case, because in the life of the, as we said at the beginning, in the life of the equipment master record, there are different processes that may affect. Transfer is also one of them, right? But the purpose of this session, as Daniel said, we wanted to give you an overview, and the better the questions, let's say it's more clear that we accomplish this part of the objective. So, and all these questions I think we can discuss them offline. So if it's okay with you, Daniel, before going to the next topic, that is the equipment assignment. Remember, we only touched good receipt and equipment enrichment, but at this moment the laptop that we received is not assigned to anyone, right? It just we received it and we left it in one office, and after the break we will cover equipment assignment. So over to you, Daniel, but feel free to propose like a break of 5 minutes, something like that, so we can start again later.
Sure.
Daniel.
Yes. Let's take a 5 minutes break, and just for information, we are receiving questions on the equipment assignment, how it's done. That's a general question, how is done the equipment assignment, and how we can look up for a particular number of pieces of equipment assigned to a particular BP. There is a T code where we can just look for all the equipment assigned to a particular business partner, but that will be after the break. So bear with us. It's 3:03 Valencia time. So in 5 minutes at 3:08, we will resume with the session, if it is okay with you. So we can have a 5 minutes break. So see you in 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. So as promised, it's 30, now it's 309, so we give you an extra minute. Sorry for that. So here Daniel Criado speaking again. So we are receiving the session, and we were just talking about the number of important questions that you're posing in the chat. We are trying to cope and answering all those questions. If not, we will try to do it offline during this rest of the week, so don't worry. And just in order to identify how important this equipment enrichment process is, remember that the life cycle of the equipment, it's quite long. So the equipment enrichment, it can be manually done not only at the goods receipt process, but during the whole life cycle of the piece of equipment. And a good excuse to start doing this, if you haven't done it so far, is when you're doing the physical verification process. Once the physical verification process is triggering basically how you are managing from the master record perspective all your equipments. So it's not only the, let's say, discrepancies that you might have found while doing the physical verification, but whether those pieces of equipment could be eventually enriched while you are doing the physical verification process. So remember that the piece of equipment, the more information you put in, the better for physical verification and for accountability purposes. But bear in mind that this can be done throughout the life cycle of the equipment or even the asset master record. So now we will, I think we are going to resume the session with equipment assignment, and I leave the floor to David. Over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Before actually starting with the equipment assignment, there were two questions that I think are very appropriate for this session, and I think we can clarify. Actually, the first one was basically asking us if we could go and show the warranty insurance tab, and I think you can see it, Daniel, on the screen. If you can confirm that. On this, I'm sharing my screen. Yes. So you have there, for example, warranty start and warranty end, and vendor. This is customer warranty and vendor manufacturer warranty, but you don't have to confuse this one with the one of the elements that you can also attach to the equipment master record, and is the warranty. So if you want to attach any document, like the scanned copy of the warranty, you can also do it in the system from here. We will also, I think, will send by email, or we will share with you another job aid on how to attach documents, but you will do it from here. You will click on this small triangle here in your equipment master record, and you have the option called Records Management Plant Maintenance. And from here, you can, let's say, select the documents that you want to upload and do it. Right now in this in the train environment, this functionality I think is not, it's not working in the train environment, but we have a very good job aid with the steps. So if you want, or if you have to attach the warranty document, you can do it from here in production, right? In your system, you will do it from here, and we can send you the steps to do it. As well, there was another question about product ID that I mentioned before, and material ID, and maybe I need to clarify that in the ECC component, and when we are processing good receipt, or when we are in the equipment master record, the type of let's say product or material that we are receiving is identified by a number. Material, and for example, this laptop has the material ID 1500005105. This material ID, it represents the computers and laptops, and this is the same number. If you go to the equipment master record, you will also find the same number in one of these tabs. Was this 1 second? Here in this serialization data, we have the material ID as well. But I mentioned before, I mentioned product ID, and maybe I confused some of you, because the product ID is, let's say, the same number as the material ID, but it's used in the shopping cart. So when we are creating a shopping cart, we will specify the product we want to acquire using this number, right? But in the shopping cart, it's called product ID, while here in ECC, it's called material ID. But we are referring to the same number. So sometimes when I'm presenting, I might say product ID or material ID, but for your own understanding, is the same number. Now, having said that, let's go to equipment assignment. And we will do the same thing if it's okay with you. We will first go through a short presentation. And after the presentation, we will perform a demonstration. And you will have both presentation and job aids shared after the session or tomorrow. So equipment assignment process. After the good receipt and the equipment master record has been created, and our SD11 or SD10 should have gone to the equipment master record to enrich it, right? So we already have an authorization group there, and we already have a functional location at least. But once the equipment is brought into operation, right, we acquire it because we wanted to assign it, for example, to one staff member who would assume the responsibility for the equipment. For example, no, this computer is a piece of equipment that can be assigned to you and a staff member, a unique person who will assume responsibility for this equipment. But also, you can acquire equipment that is not assigned to a single person. For example, a printer could be assigned to a group, right? The printer can be installed in a floor for a particular floor, but might not be assigned to a single person, right? The same for an air conditioning. No? So you have the equipment that can be assigned to a person, or if it's assigned not to a particular person, we said it's assigned to a functional location. So what will happen with the laptop? We will give it to someone. What will happen with the printer? We will install it somewhere. It's installed in first floor, behind the corner, for example. So some important facts, and this was also provided by Kirill in a previous conversation about equipment assignment. So just to make sure that we are all on the same page. So consider the following: upon a good receipt, the asset or commodity managers, so the commodity manager or the asset manager, under SD11 role, must enrich all relevant data in the equipment master record. This is something we mentioned already before, including cost center and functional location. This is important to mention because some of your entities don't have inventory. So even if it's not after receiving, if you are not assigning in right away the equipment to someone, you should include functional location. For example, we're acquiring 20 laptops, but we still haven't decided what laptop goes to what staff member. So for the time being, the laptops remain in one room. So we need to specify for all the laptops, functional location is this room. All right, and cost center was already there because it's created automatically. And by the way, as there was another question, if you have long list of equipment master record that were never enriched, maybe that's a good example of using the massive equipment enrichment functionality. So Daniel, in the physical verification session, will perform a demonstration on how to, let's say, update multiple equipment master records, right? But if you already have them and you know they are all in the same room, you can go and update functional location. Now consider that all equipment issued to individuals for personal use must be assigned to individuals in Umoja, and we will explain now how to do it. For example, mobile radios, laptops, maybe vehicles that are assigned to a person, etc. But in case of equipment for common use, it's mandatory to assign the functional location. All right? I'm just insisting on these elements because it's something very important that at least is one message that you have to keep after this session. So how are we going to assign, as in this slide, say how we assign equipment to people, to a particular staff member, or how do we assign the equipment to a functional location? We will need to use another transaction in the system that is called notification. It's called service notification. We will explain now, we will show it in the system later, but it's a document, let's say a system document that is used to manage property management service requests. So remember now, from now on, service notification is important for the assignment process and will be also important for the write-off process as well. So the service notification provides information related to who is requesting this service. For example, I am requesting a laptop, I need a laptop. This will be specified in the notification. Where will be the laptop? What type of laptop I'm requesting, or what is the element I'm requesting, from when and why, because we can also explain there the type of LSA request. So there are several types of service notifications. The ones that we are going to be reviewing today, they are called, the type is P1. And they are used for equipment assignment. But there are others that we will see, I think on Thursday or on Friday for the write-off process. Okay. So the service notification is a document that is important because it supports the approval of the assignment process, the selection of the equipment, and it leaves a track for auditors. And it also contains a list of tasks, so it allows to follow up with the actors involved in this assignment process. So this notification have a list of tasks that contain, let's say, work instructions of the steps that need to be taken during the assignment process. So it allows also to the staff member responsible of the equipment to track and see where the process is. I know this is pretty, let's say, abstract, but we will go to the system. I showed to you one notification. So before going to the system, some other important concept that you need to keep in mind. We are mentioning all the time about, let me go back. We are mentioning about functional locations, and even in the demonstration, I showed to you how to select one. But what are these functional locations? How are they set up in the system? So if you want to assign a functional location and you don't see anything, what is going on? So the functional locations actually represent your building. Just to explain it in a simple way, functional locations are every location in your entity, physical location, where one equipment can be located. And this is extracted in SAP from the real estate module. So for your entities in the real estate module, which is a different one, the functional location should be maintained up to date. And therefore, when you are assigning equipment, you should be able to select a functional location. For example, if your office is very small and it's only in one floor and there are like 7 offices and some corridors and some areas there, all these areas should be specified in the system. So when you say the printer is in corridor 1, you can select it from there. Or if you say the laptops are in the room number 4, should be selected there. Only in the case that the real estate portfolio is not up to date, until any discrepancy are resolved, you could assign, let's say, the equipment to a particular, let's say, person, but only if there is a justification for that. If you cannot assign it to the functional location because it's a problem. For example, if you are installing a printer and the functional locations are not defined. So at least you say, okay, I don't know how to select functional location because they are not maintained yet, but I'm going to assign this printer to this person who is, for example, responsible of this equipment, or is the section chief, or is the focal point for this particular office. So what are the roles involved in equipment assignment? We have a new role here, SD01 notification user. We have SD02 notification approver. Basically, the notification user is a person that is requesting the service or requesting the equipment to be assigned. Notification approver is typically the chief of the notification user, or is the person responsible for the unit that will, let's say, confirm that this corresponds to a business need. And we have the SD11, same actor as was the same user that was enriching the equipment, who is responsible to maintain the equipment master record. Only these three roles are involved. For this, let's say, a scenario where we are assuming that we don't have, let's say, inventory and warehouse, because then it could be a bit more complex. So let's see now the end-to-end process, no? How these three users interact with the equipment master record and the notification to assign the equipment to a person. Before, so you have three colors. The purple is in the notification, in the blue will be the equipment, and the brown is reservation process. We'll explain later. So first step is to create the notification. This notification, the new document that I explained before, is created by the notification user, and it's approved by the notification approver. Now we will go to the system. I will show how to do this and how to do that. After the notification is approved, so the first one is saying, I need a laptop. The notification approver is saying, yes, correct, she needs a laptop. And then we have the MDM local, the SD11 user, going, checking the notification and saying, okay, this person needs a laptop. We need to see from where we get a laptop to this person. Then we'll think about what is the source for this laptop. For example, if we have inventory or not, etc. Or if we need to buy it, or if it's new, or if it's already in stock. And there will be following steps. I'm going to go through them quickly because most of you don't have, let's say, inventory in the reservation process, but they are there because they are part of the standard process. So this SD11 user, the MDM, the maintainer, will create a reservation that will be approved by the inventory senior user. Then we will update the notification with the reservation number. The item will be, let's say, issue out of the inventory, will be taken from the warehouse, etc. Right? But eventually, what will happen is that the notification user will receive a laptop, and then we will update the notification. We will sign a document like a brochure to explain that, I mean, to reflect that we will receive the document, will be updated to the notification. And the MDM local user will update the equipment master record saying this laptop is now assigned to this person, as well as the functional location, because if this person is in building 1 and is not in building 2, we will need to also update functional location. So you see a lot of steps here, but please, I'm going to remove now the steps related to reservation process, because for your entities, most of you don't have inventory and warehouse. But if you do have, just remember that there is also the process that covers that portion. But if you don't have inventory, which I think is most of your case, you will focus only on these steps. All right, I'm going to do it now in the system, if it's okay with you, and if you don't have additional questions. So notification user creates notification, then the approver approves the notification and release it. Then the MDM local SD11 will see what laptop needs to be assigned. It will be reflected in the notification. The notification will be printed, will be signed, and then the equipment will be updated, saying this equipment is assigned to this person. Daniel?
Okay. Yeah, so we'll give you time to catch your breath. Let me see from where we start. I'm starting from the SD10 role. Ivo Petzer from as an SME subject matter expert explaining that SD10 role, it's a role that I probably in later will be mentioned by David, but it's a global role that is not limited to one authorization group or co-center, but this role should be issued to PMU staff for post-facto enrichment. And please bear in mind that SD10s will be able to create equipments in the system from scratch. And there are a variety of situations that when this occurs, and it will be explained by David. There are questions on why we're using notification instead of init. I leave it there, David, for you. And whether if an entity is purchasing for consumption, do they still have to use the notification? I think that you already explained, but I think it's important to reinforce that fact. Over to you.
Yes. Sorry. Now, so starting from the last question, if the items are acquired for consumption, meaning that you don't have inventory, so you don't have an inventory module and you don't have warehouse module, but still you have equipment master record. So not having inventory or not having warehouse doesn't imply that you don't have to manage the property, right? So if you have to manage property, notification process is a process to support property management. So it's not inventory related. So even if you are not having inventory and if you have to assign an equipment to a person, notification is the process to be used. And then the question about init, yeah, of course, at the end, the notification is doing an equivalent to the init process in the sense that you have the service request, it's been approved, but in this case, it's in SAP, it's integrated, and then I think for audit purposes, everything is integrated. And this is basically more a business decision, right? So I'm right now here explaining what is the process and what I don't see, and then maybe it's better than SME clarifies that if it's needed to do it in both systems, no? Because it really, when you create the service notification, it's approved, then it's assigned to the equipment, you have all type of reports and there's fully integrated. So I don't know if in this case, doing it in init is again doing the same thing, but this is more a business question that I will leave to subject matter experts in New York to confirm. Right. What I can tell you for sure is that in principle, the process that we have been mandated to train and to implement is through the notification in SAP. And there was another question, Daniel, the first one, but I'm not sure. Yeah, about the roles, right? So you were, someone was SD10 and SD11. Here in this presentation that we will share, you also have as a reference the description of all the functions that these roles have. And I'm explaining everything using only SD11 because I think it's easier to understand first what are the functions and then see particularities. But you have here two slides, one mentioning the functions of the SD11, and as Daniel correctly said, SD10 can do as much as SD11, but can also create equipment master record. So if we have, let's say, a situation when some items were acquired, but the equipment master record was never created for any reason, SD10 can even create the equipment master record. Okay, that is something very important. And he has also authorization to update the status of the notification. So let's say that the SD10 is kind of SD11 with more access. Something else to add, Daniel, or I can jump to the presentation, I mean to the
Yes.
demonstration.
Yeah, a small comment, short comment from Ivo. I think he's got a very good point on why using notifications instead of I need. He's mentioned in the chat that all Umoja transactions are not subject to I need. They are used for internal control and compliance with IPSES requirements. So notification is closely linked to IPSES as well. So that's why we are acquiring, or let's say, using the notification instead of I need. Over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So what I will do now is to go to the system and go through these steps here. So let me just change the screen. I'm now going to log in as different users, so I will not log out and log in. So every time I will be acting as a different user from the same, let's say, connection. But I will try to show this slide so you know in what part of the end-to-end process we are right now. So now let's imagine that I'm logging as a notification user, and the laptop that we previously received, let's say we want to assign it to someone. No? So this person, for example, Daniel is the notification user, and he needs a laptop, right? Because he's actually using mine today. So he's requesting a laptop because he needs a laptop, and then we'll request this through a notification service notification. So how do we create a notification in the system? We go to the system and we will use the new T code. The T code is IW51. This T code allows us to create a new service notification. We have here some fields there, and the type of notification we are going to use is P1. Is the standard one for service maintenance and service requests. And for notifications, since as I mentioned before, since they have, let's say, a list of tasks, we are recommending you to use a template that will automatically create the tasks, and you need only to manage them. So some of the entities in production already have notification templates for these processes. So for assignment, there is a template, and for write-off, there is another template. The template can be created by you, all right? But for our X scenario, I created a template so you will see it as, let's say, as similar as possible to what would happen in production. Now, the first time you go to create notifications, you could discuss also with New York and ask them to give you a notification number that you will use as a template. In my case, my template is this one, right? I'm selecting 10009672 as a template, and I'm pressing enter to create the notification. Now I have a new screen. This screen that you see here contains information already about, it contains already a description that says equipment assignment, but this one can be customized, right? So this is defining the type of service that we need, right? So it contains also some information about the status of the notification. If we click here, we'll see the different services, I mean the different statuses. This one is right now as request created. And we need to specify some information here for the type of equipment that we are requesting. At this moment, you see functional location input and equipment is empty because Daniel is only saying I need a laptop. We will specify the reason of this request by decoding. There is a job aid that we are sharing at the end of the session with all these steps, page by page, click by click, that you can follow to create it. So, but you see here, a coding is defaulted to UN assignment because the template I selected is already for assignment. Otherwise, you will need to select it. Okay, UN assignment. Now the description is equipment assignment or assignment of a laptop. You will describe it here. Okay, and here you can provide more details Daniel needs a new laptop, and you describe here the let's say the request. What else we have here in this service request? It's the planner group. It's the team that will receive, or the team that will be processing this notification. So if we are asking for a laptop, we will select here the planner group that will take care of this request. In my case, I'm requesting it, let's say, to the entity MONUSCO. So in your mission, you will select a different entity. And as a planner group in MONUSCO, the planner group that will process this for a laptop assignment is ICT team, right? If you have in your entity, you need to understand what is the list of planner groups that you have, because you might have only one, depending on the size of the entity. And as well, in this notification, it would be possible, if you already know it, or maybe it will be indicated later, who would be the person, let's say, responsible for this notification. So you already know it, you indicate it here. Anyway, this is optional and can be assigned later. So you will enter here the number the personal number of the person responsible. Okay, I just enter one number randomly. And this is the notification, and we can go to the different tabs. Actually, this location data will be generated automatically after we know what laptop is Daniel is going to receive, and tasks as well will be maintained. All right. So right now I just created the notification. I will not add anything else, and I will click on save. And we have a new number here. It is the notification number. You can see it at the bottom of the page. In this case, is 10009722.
While David is writing down the notification just created, I want to draw your attention that there is a Umoja role for doing all this, meaning that creating a notification, it's the SD01. I don't remember if David mentioned, but Ivor Pet said he wanted us to underline that fact that as SD01, you can create notifications, and not only for assignment, but for some other processes as well that we'll show to you. So all these roles, all these activities, and even the workflow within the notification process, it's already explained as well in the job aid that I shared with you in the chat. So as we are receiving the information from David, we are posting in the chat several documents that may be interesting for you. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Daniel. Very good point. And remember that in the end-to-end that we are explaining, this step, create notification, is done by the notification user. Notification user is SD01. And here in the presentation, you have an extended list of, let's say, roles and responsibilities of this user, as well as transaction that he can perform or she can perform. And the very first one is creating notifications, and this one is typically the property, could be property custody. Okay. We already created the notification. So what is the next step in the end-to-end is the approval and release of the notification. So this process will be done by SD02, notification approver. So how do we proceed in the system? We go with a different T code. The T code to create the notification was IW51. This one is IW52 to change the existing notification. So the system asks us to enter the notification number is this one. So now imagine that I'm a different user. Huh? Now it's not Daniel, but it's actually Cyril who is going to approve. Yes, Daniel needs a laptop. So SD02 will get to the notification, will review the request. Yes, actually he needs a laptop. We'll check who is going to take care of this. We'll review as well maybe the list of the tasks that we'll explain later, that how to maintain them, and basically is going to approve it. How do we approve the notification? we need to change the status. The notification status has also system status and user status. So we go with we click on this pencil here, and we change the status of the notifications from request created to request approved by selecting the second bullet. We click on the green check, and you see now the status says approved, but very tricky. It doesn't mean it's already approved because we are changing the notification. So we will need to save the notification to get it, let's say, approved. All right. So you can see the system status is saying there are outstanding tasks exist because this is still in process, but we change to APPR, which is approved. We select this option, we go back, and now we are going to save, but we have to do something else. Apart from approving the notification, we want to release it. So the SD11 starts working on this immediately. So apart from clicking on the status and selecting approval, we need to click on the green flag as well to release this notification, right? So it's not only I'm approving it, I'm saying this should be done right away. Okay, so don't wait to assign the laptop for Daniel. I'm approving and I'm releasing. So I'm clicking on this green flag here, right? And now I will click on save. So I saved, and now this notification is approved and released. If I opened right now the notification, I see the status is approved and it's in status released as well. Okay, notification is in process because we already released it. So I did already the step number 2. As you see, we call it create notification, but it took me like 2 minutes, and the approval, it took me as well 1 minute. So I did step 1, notification user creation, and I did step 2, approval of notification. So what is the next step? We will go and check as the SD11 and see what item needs to be assigned. So let's say now this could be also offline. So the SD11 will go to the notification. So let me go back. SD11 will go to notification with T code IW52, for example, or 53 is the only ones to display. Now I am the SD11, right? And I say, okay, oh, I see a request from, let's say, Daniel that needs a laptop, and this is already approved by the supervisor and needs a laptop. So I'm going to check what laptops we have available in our inventory or what have laptops we have simply available, and we'll see what to assign. Right, so that is the process. And as well, we'll go and this user can go to the tasks and see, all right, the record notification. So this tab here, tasks, has a list of tasks corresponding to the notification process, okay? So this is referring to the, let's say, the main request, location data about the item and the location of the item, and then tasks is important tab that contains a list of, let's say, instructions. So we as SD11 that we are taking care of the this notification, we see that record request in notification is already done. So we can select the line and say this task is already complete, and we click on the flag below. Is the notification already approved? True. So I can also select this notification approval and say this one is completed. So it will change to this status CO. So the task number 3 is already done. So I also completed. Okay. Sorry if I'm going too fast because there are several steps, but remember the purpose of this is for you to get an overview, and then you will have all the document with all the steps that you can follow. So let's say that, yes, it's already created, it's already approved. And I'm going to assign now a new laptop. So if we go back to the end-to-end process, we said we already know what laptop I'm going to assign. So we are skipping the reservation, approve reservation, perform good issue because we are not having inventory. And I'm going all the way to update notification because it happens that we as property custodians, we already know what laptop we need to assign to Daniel. And the laptop that we're going to assign to Daniel is the one I received before. And I say, okay, Daniel is going to receive the laptop that is identified by this equipment number. So I'm going and check. Let me see if this equipment is actually not assigned to anyone. So I go with another, I create another window and I go and see the laptop that we received before, whose number was 1619230. Okay, this is the laptop that I can assign to Daniel. How is this laptop? Is it assigned to someone? Let me check. We click on the status of the laptop and it says equipment ID that is actually equipment idle. So this laptop is not assigned to anyone. And we can also check this one from the partner assignment. There is only vendor reference. So this laptop is free, Daniel. So you're lucky. It's your lucky day. You're gonna get this laptop assigned to you. So how do we do it? I go to the notification that was created and approved. And I'm going to indicate here the equipment number of the laptop that is going to be assigned to Daniel, 16192301. This is the serial number. This is the equipment master record, the same as we enriched before the break. I press enter, and I'm already saying that some data will be copied from the equipment, which is fine, normal, no problem. So automatically the system is bringing some data to the notification. Now the computer laptop is indicating in the notification, this is the laptop that will be assigned to Daniel. This is the function allocation. This laptop was in Goma HQ office. This is the one. And now some data has been copied to the notification. All right. Sorry, I forgot to. Yeah, I need to specify the planner group that is not specified in the equipment and it's already copied. Okay. Should be okay. And then we have the tasks. Okay, has been okay. We have added the equipment master record to the notification, and we can see now in the location data, the cost center has been derived from the equipment. So what did I do? Actually, it was a long talk, but I only entered one field in the notification. I came to the notification. I said, okay, Daniel needs a laptop. What laptop do we have available? This is the number identifying the laptop. I have entered the laptop number and I save. Now, does Daniel have the laptop yet? No, because I only added in the notification the laptop that Daniel is going to get. But for Daniel to get the laptop, he needs to sign something, right? So let me go to again to this end-to-end. What we did right now was the notification user was adding the equipment number to the notification. Now I need Daniel to sign a paper to confirm that he received the laptop. So what paper needs Daniel to sign? The notification, for example. So we need to print the notification. To print the notification, we come here, we go to service notification, print notification. The system is showing another screen and I can say print preview. And this is the notification that Daniel is going to sign. I wanted to zoom in, but I cannot. But in this document, what you can see is the notification history that was created, that we print and the equipment master record. So I will print this document, I will give it to Daniel, and Daniel will sign it. And then he will get his laptop. So this is the process to print. To explain it again, even though this is recorded so you can go anytime, we open the notification and we go to service notification, print, and print notification, and we click on print preview. All right. What else? So we go back to the end-to-end process. Let's say, Daniel, you received the notification, you signed, and you got your laptop. All right. So if you got your laptop, the next step is to be done by the SD11. Okay. Sorry, the last steps of, let's say, printing and giving this to Daniel is performed by the notification user. Okay. Because I'm doing everything myself, so I don't know if I mentioned that or I said SD11. Okay. But you can see it in the end-to-end process. Okay. Anyway, printing the notification and signing is not such a big thing. So Daniel could do it itself, no, because he was the notification user creating the transaction. But it needs to be signed. And now that we said Daniel has the laptop, what do we need to do? We need to go to the equipment master record and assign it, to change it, to say this equipment is assigned to Daniel. So what was the T code to access to the equipment master record? IE02, same as before. We go to the equipment master record, whose number was, we wrote it down before. Yeah, it's this one. And this is the laptop that we are assigning to Daniel. So now we want to update the equipment master record. And we need to do the following. First one, the status of the equipment now cannot be idle. So we change the status of the equipment, right, Daniel? The laptop, do you have the laptop, the new laptop? Yes. So now it's not going to be idle. Now it's an equipment assigned in operation. So instead of the first status, we need to select the second one. We select equipment assignment. So for then in the future, when we run reports, this laptop will appear as assigned and not as an idle. So we go back. We change the equipment status. Now, who is the person, let's say, accountable for this equipment from now on? Is Daniel. So we need to assign it. How do we assign it? We go to the tab partner assign. So 1 second, I'm going to the tab, this one, partner assignment, and we have to add a new line because this is going to be assigned to a person that will be the user accountable. And here under the column partner, we specify the business partner of Daniel. For example, this person that is going to be, I don't know, for example, this BP, let's say. Daniel is actually not Daniel, but Marian Victoria something. And we are assigning this laptop to this person. So now the laptop has two things that were not there before. Now its status is equipment assigned. There is a user accountable, and we need to change something else because now the equipment is not anymore where it used to be, right? The equipment used to be in the HQ office, but now has been assigned to Daniel and is in Daniel's location or office. So we change the functional location and we put a different, we will put a different code here. Okay, so we will click on change installation position. Sorry. Oh, sorry, what no? Sorry, we need to dismantle it before. Yeah, and now we want to install it. Right now we said no, it's not in HQ office. It's going to be somewhere else. So we can select from the list. So to make it short, I know already the location I want to select 100 320 and then the Daniel location, let's say, is this one, is the telecom network IT tower, because Daniel is working in the IT tower now. So I click on the green check, and that's it. What did I do? Just to summarize, at the end of the process, after the notification is approved and we identify the laptop that needs to be assigned to Daniel, we printed the notification, Daniel already signed, and now we go to the equipment and we indicate three main things. First one, indicate the status of the equipment. It's not free, it's not idle, it's assigned. Second, we specify who is the user accountable of this laptop. Now Daniel is responsible. And last but not least is where the laptop is going to be located in the new functional location in the telecom network IT tower. And that's it. It also, I think it's recommended to enter in the, it's also written in the job aid here in one of these fields, in this field here, inventory number, we can put the notification number that what used to assign to this. This is only for reporting purpose. This is for reporting purposes. And once we have added all this information to the equipment, we save. So now, as in the reports, we will see that this equipment is assigned to Daniel and his location. So when the moment of physical verification comes, we will see from the report immediately this equipment is in this location and so on. And last step, after we assigned and we are closing because it's already late, give me 30 seconds, we go back to the notification to say everything has been done. So who is doing that? The notification user, of course. So IW52, we open our notification and we say already in the tasks, the notification was printed, so we complete, and the notification was signed by Daniel, and we didn't attach the voucher, so we need to attach it. The notification that was printed and signed can be scanned and attached in the same way I mentioned before, going to this triangle here, selecting service notification, and then we will have like a window to attach documents. Okay, not doing that now because it doesn't work well in the tree environment. But after we attach, we select all the tasks, we mark them as complete, and we complete the notification, which is the very last step for the process. Okay, it's not 5th of February, it's 25th of February. And we say yes, it's okay. Okay. And the notification has been completed and the assignment process has been completed, and that's all from my side. So Daniel, over to you if there are, I hope there are questions.
Yeah, thank you, David. And I know it wasn't easy to do the end-to-end in theory and then doing the demo at the same time in parallel. So thank you for that. As you guys have witnessed through the last 40 minutes, most of the actions in order to assign a piece of equipment are taking place in the notification part rather than in the equipment master record, because eventually in the equipment master record, you basically have to change the status and include a BP number in the equipment master record and then saved. I mean, from the system point of view, it's just 2 clicks, but from the business process point of view, we have to mention how the notification works and who's creating and approving the notification, and what is the MDM local data maintainer doing in the process. So we have a lot of comments and questions related to that. If we don't have time to answer now live, we will do it offline. So sorry for that, but we are closing because it's already two hours and I think it's too much. And then we are recording the session as well. There are a couple questions related to why printing and why there is no some sort of electronic acknowledgement that you have received the laptop, for example. So far, the notification doesn't have any electronic signature, right? We have to print this voucher and then attach into the notification in order to acknowledge that the user has received the laptop. And there are questions related to how we can massively assign pieces of equipment instead of one by one. And why we don't, after goods received, why the user assignment is not automatically done as well. Of course, if we already, we cannot ask the system to assign all pieces of equipment to a particular VP, because that's something that it's a different process from separated from the goods received, right? This is the equipment assignment. That's another process, so that's why we treat it separately. But to the best of my knowledge, related to the electronic signature, there is no so far. And of course, we had several points on why, when instead of assigning, if a staff member is re-signing from the entity, how do we remove his assignment from the pieces of equipment? So as I said, in a nutshell, basically how we can massively assign and how we can, let's say, take out the assignment of a particular piece of equipment to a VP. Over to you, David.
Okay, regarding the assignment of multiple equipments, there are two steps there, right? One is the notification, as you see in the screen. One is the process, the notification process. And the other thing is what you do in the equipment master report. If you are assigning multiple equipments, I believe, and maybe from your they can confirm, if they are not fixed assets, right? You can have a list of equipment in the same notification, right? You can get initially like a list. But if we are talking about the fixed assets, I think you need one notification by fixed asset. But this is pretty much a business question. I don't want to get too much into. So Betty, is better if you would track the question and we ask Kirill for confirmation. And from the equipment master record point of view, and the massive update tool that we will see tomorrow, we'll see. I'm not sure if you can assign I'm not sure if you can assign at that level. So maybe that's something, it's a good question for the physical verification, no? When you will update the webmaster record, if when you do physical verification, you see that this laptop is assigned to a person, I'm not sure if it can be attached there. So that is actually a very good question. It means that at least the basic process has been understood, and then we can confirm with our colleagues from New York how to speed up the process for multiple assignments. And regarding the signature process, yeah, what we are explaining here is how the process was implemented to all entities. So if you have any suggestion about this step, you can discuss also with Kirill, and yeah, just let us know if there is any change on the policy. Okay, so no, basically that is the process as it is, and it's also explained in the job aid. And the recommendation from Kirill is we are implementing this process of assignment as it's defined in the job aid. Okay, so that is from my side, what I can say, Daniel. I think I didn't say too much.
Don't worry. So we are going to finish today's session. As you have seen so far, there was plenty of things to go through. And just bear in mind that the equipment master record, it's pivoting, it's a concept that pivots all these different business processes, right? So that's why we want to bear in mind that how important the enrichment of that piece of equipment from the system point of view is. And we will leave it here. We'll try to download the chat and take a look at the questions and see whether we can answer offline. All of them, we're recording the session and we'll try to make it available right after this session as well. Please, tomorrow we will have the physical verification session, so it's linked to this one in a way that once we have received all the equipment, we have to physically verify them, and we will see whether we are going to find any discrepancy between the real situation of that pieces of equipment in our entity and what the system shows. If there are discrepancies, we will show them in the template that we'll show tomorrow, and then we will change. It will be the work of the SD11, the local data maintainer, to update with the accurate information and the real information that is coming from the physical verification process. So as you can see, this is a life cycle that is starting from the goods received, physical verification, and eventually we will write the pieces of equipment off, and we will dispose them. That will be by Friday. So we hope that you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much, David, for your time and effort. We'll send to you the presentations that we covered today, and then the recording right after the session as well.
Daniel, Zlatan here in behalf of Kirill. As you know,
Hi,
he's
Zlatan.
on. Hi, how's it going? He's on SRBQ, but the several questions you mentioned the headquarters. So please, if you can summarize them in one email and send us as soon as possible, and we'll review today and answer. That maybe answer can be ready for tomorrow morning or whenever you need.
Thank you, Zlatan. Very good point. We'll try to do so. Thank you, Zlatan, and our colleagues in New York and Muriel as well. So it's the same link. So tomorrow we will resume with the physical verification, and we hope you like it, and stay tuned because more will come this week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.